I'm joined now by the political journalist Zoe Grunwald and The Sun's deputy political editor Ryan Sabey once again. Welcome back. We are kicking off this hour with, Ryan, a story on page 4 of The Sun. We had thought that this story might be plastered on all the front pages. It is on a couple, but this is the news yesterday. The Supreme Court made a ruling on car financing, and some thought it would go another way. That's
right. It shows how tightly contested these rulings can be. Because if they'd gone one way, banks, lenders could have been on the hook for about £45 billion, paying out a massive amount of compensation. But the way the judgment panned out was that the vast majority of people who took out these loans will not receive compensation. And it seems that only some drivers will get that cash if there was excessive interest payments or commission paid. So the Financial Conduct Authority are going to be having a look at this over the weekend, and it looks like there will be some kind of redress system, but that will be announced early next week. Now, I think the knock-on effect for the wider economy and the huge sigh of relief I think the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, will be breathing this morning is the fact that it could have affected UK growth and investment in this country, because if people see, or investors overseas see, the banks are on the hook for a lot of money.
They were talking about over £40 billion.
£40 billion or so. It doesn't look like Britain is a very attractive place, or the banks don't seem very attractive to invest in, and that can have the knock-on effect of UK growth being damaged slightly. So I think the court ruling has massively helped out Rachel Reeves, and the fact that she was actually going to have to bring in, or they were talking about bringing in, retrospective legislation, because these sums were just such staggering amounts. They would have had to actually try to limit this. So the Treasury will be happy this morning when they pick up the papers and when they read that court judgment from yesterday.
And there's a sentence I haven't heard much recently. So
exactly.
Just slipped my elbow off the desk there. But yeah, so Rachel Reeves at least appreciating that, even if some car finance consumers aren't. Let's move on to the Eye next, Zoe, because this is a story about drug prices, and Donald Trump's involved. So explain.
Yes, so Trump has demanded that pharmacy firms, and this includes UK-based firms like GSK and AstraZeneca, to give the US something he calls more favoured nation prices for new drugs, basically asking them to reduce the price of drugs for sale in the US market. But he's also said if they do this, or firms have suggested that if they do this, they'll have to pass that cost on to other countries. And of course, this is raising a lot of alarm bells in the UK, because pharmacists are now warning that this could mean medicines like weight loss jabs, beta blockers, antibiotics could all be at risk of price hikes and supply disruption if the pharmaceutical companies agree to do this. And the issue here as well, of course, is that if price rises so much that the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, NICE, decide that the drugs aren't worth buying, this could mean there is a massive shortage of drugs in particular areas across the UK drug market, and will have a real knock-on impact on the NHS. This is going to be such a headache for Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, and for the NHS. Already they're dealing with trying to cut costs. Now, if they're facing spiralling drug prices as a result of tariffs, that's going to be even more difficult, even more pressure on the NHS.
Which makes me want to turn to actually a story in The Guardian, which we were going to talk about a bit later, but it's very relevant here. And this is about the pressures that Wes Streeting does find himself under, not only the threat, potentially, of higher drug prices, but all sorts of pressures from lots of different workers in the NHS threatening strike action. That's
right. I think there could be this avalanche of strike action running up into the next 6 months. You could have junior doctors, consultants, all trying to take some kind of industrial action. Wes Streeting sees himself as caught in the middle of this, but he's holding firm. We had junior doctors who were given pay rises last year of about 20+%. They want the same again this year. But he's just saying there isn't the money available to this. But there's an interesting piece, as the Guardian looks at here, in that how Wes Streeting caught right in the middle of this, but actually could hinder any ambitions that he has for Number 10, because although the public are on his side So they like to see...
In being tough with the unions,
In being
you
tough
mean?
with the unions. But the trouble is, the Labour voters and the Labour members aren't particularly keen on his stance with junior doctors. So it may well play with the public very well, but actually, if he actually wants to get into number 10 and be that Labour leader, it's going to be tough going for him.
Well, yes, and also we were talking in the last hour about the Guardian's front page, talking about waiting lists and how so many people have not been seen at all since being referred by their GP. I mean, that is the lived experience of a lot of people in the country as well. And do you think they will blame Wes Streeting explicitly? Do you think that could damage his leadership?
I think it's a difficult gig being Health Secretary because obviously the UK public care a lot about the National Health Service, but it's been on its knees, under-resourced and struggling for over a decade now. So I think there is some understanding that it isn't the current Health Secretary's fault that the NHS is dealing with these issues. But as Ryan says, if he is then locked into an ongoing dispute with NHS staff, and we've got the junior doctors, but we also know that there's potentially appetite amongst the nurses as well for a pay rise, you start to see the public associate further increases in waiting lists with the government's inability to break the strike action. And so even if they might empathise with the doctors wanting a pay rise or they might actually disagree with it, there will be a feeling of why can't the Health Secretary avert this crisis? Why can't he break through the strikes? Why can't he offer them something, or why can't he get them to walk away from the negotiating table? So it's actually it's kind of caught it's a rock between a hard place here for Wes Streeting. And even if metrics are ticking up when it comes to the NHS, if you know somebody or you are on an NHS waiting list or your treatment has been delayed, you are going to have a negative view of the health service. So it's very, very difficult to change people's minds.
And one interesting point this Guardian piece makes is that the Department of Health is the place to go if you don't want to get into number 10. Run through a whole list: Jeremy Hunt, Ken Clarke, Andy Burnham. All these people were Secretary of State for Health, and their chances of getting to number 10 were severely diminished, and they had a till slip but didn't actually make it.
That's very interesting. Hadn't looked at it like that. Talking of health, Nigel Farage says he's fit as a flea.
Yes, this
is in the Times.
This is a story in the Times. They've had an interview with Nigel Farage, and there have been sort of rumours sort of swirling around Westminster that is Nigel Farage's health up to scratch. Well, he says that's the only card that a lot of his opponents have actually got to play, and it shows how desperate they are to sort of paint him in this image of him not being fit for office. But he says he has calmed down slightly with his lunches because he took out a very interesting chap for lunch, and he said they only had one bottle of wine for lunch. So he's, I think he's in rude health, but I think he's not particularly liking those rumours that are swirling around. But he does make
and he's not lost his sense of humour.
And he's not lost his sense of humour. But he does make the point that the build up to the next election, he feels like that is his last shot for the big prize, and Labour are going to go all guns blazing to attack him in the coming months.
Absolutely, and really interesting how many stories are related to Reform's rise. We're out of time. See you next hour.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.